So tonight we're continuing our journey on what would Jesus do, and we're going to say that he would not reciprocate in kind. Pat, you want to look that up? Reciprocate, yeah. He's challenging me on my big words, and so far it's over 3. That's a good one. Yeah, I know, right? So Matthew chapter number 5, if you'll go there with me, and we're going to read some scripture. And read in verse number 38 through 42. I think maybe Jeff's going to read that for us. You there? All right, good. Thank you.
You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile with him, go 2. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you.
You done? Okay. So this is the scripture that I have chosen to talk about reciprocating in kind, is kind of a very human thing to do, is to want to get back at people that hurt you in some way, or did something against you, or said something against you. It's very, very human, but Jesus here is telling us it's not very spiritual. So let's go and first of all take a look at the outline, what the Old Testament permission was in case of injury. It was permission, not a command. So in the Old Testament, of course, they had to set up some some civil laws. You know, if a guy runs over your goat, what do you do? Well, he's got to give you 2 goats back or something like that. So it's the only way you can actually manage in some civil community and not get in fights all the time, not get in fist fights. It even goes so far as to talk about what happens if you kill somebody, and or what happens if you kill somebody accidentally. It wasn't intended. So there's the reciprocity, Mr. Monley, program in the Old Testament that is a permission slip to make things right. It is not required that you do that. It is not required that if a guy runs over your goat, you say, okay, man, this is it, 2 goats. And if you don't do you could say, I recognize it was an accident, and so it's not required that I do this. So it's still matter of the heart, is it not? So when we get to Matthew chapter 5, we're in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount. And in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is intensifying everything in the law. He's blowing it up and making it a matter of the heart. So he says, thou shalt not kill. But I say, if you hate your brother, you're guilty of murder. So what's that? Well, we're talking about not what you did, but what you felt about it, what you think about it. So this whole Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is intensifying the law. In this particular case, the Jewish teachers and there were even judges that were put in place to sort of manage civil matters and to manage things that went awry in some way and see if they couldn't make things. But when we get to the New Testament now, we're living in a different world. We're living in a different society. And what Jesus is doing is requiring of us to examine our hearts in what we do. He's telling us that we're not going to necessarily have to do this, but here's what I want you to do. Here's the way I want you to think and act. So in verse number, back to the sheet, the New Testament precept, forgive the injury done to the complainant. So he's asking for forgiveness. Now, why would he be doing that? I mean, what's he trying to set these people up for, do you think?
Passion. Grace.
Grace. He's setting them up for grace, because what he's about to extend to them is something that they didn't deserve. You don't deserve grace. The definition of it is unmerited favor of God. So he's trying to say to them, guess what's getting ready to happen? I'm about to forgive you. And I'm going to require of you forgiveness. You have been the recipient of it. I want you to grant it. And so he sets up this whole scenario now where he's trying to change people's get-even mindset and get people to think a little more forgiving in their deportment. Thank you. Another big word. So it says we must not be vengeful. So in verse number 39, it says, "But I say that you should resist evil, and whosoever shall smite you on the right cheek, turn to him the left also." So he's saying, I don't want you to seek revenge when you think you have been wronged. Now, anybody in here ever been wronged? Okay. Melvin says yes, and okay. We got a lot of wrong. Everybody's been wronged in some way. Come on, we all know that. And you may have some that's been eating at you, right? And that will keep you sort of in a jail. And some people hate people that are dead, but they can't help it anymore because they're dead. So they're slaves to people that are dead. So it's really suggesting to us that we learn this matter of forgiveness. And in fact, forgiveness is called by some God's gift to the victim. Because what generally happens is the perp doesn't care. He's not in prison to himself. He doesn't care. We have people with no moral code at all, and they'll hurt you and don't care and laugh at you. And they'll just keep doing it and have fun doing it. They'll take your stuff and don't care. They got over on you. Ha, ha, ha. Funny, yeah, right? So, injury is done to the victim. Well, how does the victim get over that? Because the other guy's already over it. The victim has to learn how to forgive. Because if he doesn't learn how to forgive, guess what's going to happen? You're going to build up and build up and build up, and you're going to have a volcano's worth of hatred inside of you and bitterness and anger, and you'll be led by evil forces, I think. And I think that's one of Satan's ploys, is to get you to say you have rights. You know, it always makes me nervous when a person starts a sentence with, I have the right to. Well, that means there's too much going on there. I think that what we're being asked to do in this portion of Scripture is give up our right to reciprocity. Give it up. So if a guy comes and, by the way, on the notes, the blow to my cheek is personal injury. So if somebody hurts you, that's a personal injury. Blow to the cheek, personal injury. So if somebody does you, by the way, put yourself in the position of these early Christians. We know that they were despised. They were despised in Jerusalem. They were stoned. They were despised in the Old Testament. They were despised in the New Testament. In fact, let me read this for you in Hebrews chapter 11. This goes back to the Old Testament. And Hebrews, I know it starts with a H, doesn't it? So it's got to be right here, almost there. All right, so listen to this. Old Testament saints. What a list of group of people. I'm in Hebrews 11:33, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, moreover of bonds and imprisonments. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, they were tempted, they were slain with the sword. They wandered up. It doesn't sound like a glamorous life, does it? That sounds like people that are trying to do the most right receive the most hate, because it blackens the eye of everybody else who aren't willing to live the way you live. So here we have Christians, right? And what does it mean to be a Christian? I mean, what would be the argument against this thing? What's the problem? Jesus said, love your enemies. What's the problem with that? How can you fight against that? Well, that raises the bar, because you're not, most people don't do that. So it raises the standard of righteousness so much that it makes everybody else look a little bit dim, doesn't it? The world doesn't want that kind of. Right now, they're talking about letting some Americans go out of North Korea for a good faith demonstration of this upcoming meeting that our president might be having with North Korea. And I guarantee you, look at those people, I guarantee they're missionaries. Most of what you see being held captive in these countries that are being persecuted, I guarantee they're missionaries. Otherwise, why would they be there? What's the odds of them going there just to say, well, I'm gonna be a backpacker in Afghanistan? Well, maybe you should try the Rockies first. You know that if you're going to be a backpacker. No, I guarantee they're missionaries. All these people that you see in these imprisoned right now are missionaries going in covertly and trying to make a mark for God. And man, the world doesn't like that. They just hate that. And where would it be if we went in and tried to assassinate people as Christian missionaries? No, that's not the way it works. See, it makes me cry just thinking of it, right? That's the CIA's job or somebody else's job. That's not the Christian's job. Our job is to go in and love people, even those that hate you, which is what happens in these days in the Muslim world. Christians are killed all the time, and it's never been about your life. It's always been about the plan of God and how God works in the world, and your life is expendable. My life is expendable because I'm going to die anyway, right? Some of you guys have been trying to die all week, and you may make it, if you don't get better, right? So here's what it says. If somebody injures you, you do not reciprocate. So who changed the world through doing stuff like that? Give me some famous people that changed the world by living that way. Gandhi was one. Martin Luther King, pretty famous folks, right? Non-violent. I mean, and what does the violence do? Well, that never changes the world. That just makes everybody angrier. But the non-violence, it's a message that is louder than the gun. You can't change the world with the sword. You have to change it with the Spirit. And they change things. And we are the salt of the earth. We are the light that sit on a hill and it can't be hid. And then, by the way, a light never lights the light. The light always illuminates something else. So that's our job. And if we decide that we're going to, and by the way, have we had a bad history regarding that? Terrible history regarding. You call Christian. When I think of Christian, I think of crusades. I think of swords. I think of people going through and killing Muslims in Jerusalem, and the Pope rewarding them with eternal life just because you killed one. I mean, it's not his to give. It's kind of over his pay grade, you know. But man, talk people into killing people. Just talk them into killing people. I remember I took a world history class in college, and I was reading about the First World War, and they moved 1 million people here, and they were killed. They moved 1 million people there, and they were killed. And they moved. What? Are you serious? The guy with the gun, what does he care? Nothing. He's just required to do it. It's the governments that do it. It's people who are hungry for land, or people who are hungry for fame or resources, or I don't know. It's just the way things are. But Jesus said, if somebody hits you on the cheek, don't reciprocate. If you want to be a world changer, you have to bring peace. Look at the next one, verse 40. Here's what it says, and if a man shall sue you at the law and take away your coat, what do? It says, give him something else. Give him something else. So here we have, note the note, right? The loss of a coat is the loss of my estate. So now I'm beyond my physical well-being. Now I'm into my estate. And you cost me something. You cost me money. And what do you do when somebody messes with you and you lose some money? Me, I'm so over that it doesn't make any difference anymore. If a bill comes up that I have to pay $1,000 and it's required of me, if I've got to pay it, done. I don't sit around and think about it. You could do that. It'll eat your lunch if you let it. Oh, $1,000. I can't believe this. This is going to kill me. Where am I going to get this? And how am I going to recover? I had plans for that. Right? You can let that eat your lunch, can't you? Man, don't worry about tomorrow, a famous man once said. He said, consider the lilies of the field. They don't toil. They don't have to work. They don't work. Consider the fowl of the air. They don't have any. By the way, have you seen this YouTube thing where this woodpecker is attacking a snake? Did you see that? Isn't that insane? So here's this woodpecker. He decides to get on this tree and start looking for whatever they look for. And so he's pecking away, and all of a sudden there's a hole there, and this ginormous snake comes out like 3 foot long, just a piece of him. And he's saying, I'm trying to sleep in here. And you're pecking on my house. Would you get out of here? And so the woodpecker decides to take the snake on. This is my claim. I'm sticking. So the woodpecker goes after the snake. And what does the snake do? He bites the woodpecker. You'd think, well, that's the end of that job. No, this woodpecker has some metal, right? He's coming right back at the snake over and over, and the snake keeps biting him and shaking him around. And he's probably full of venom by now, right? He's going to die in a minute anyway. And he keeps coming back at the thing, and the snake keeps, and the woodpecker keeps, and they keep fighting each other. Man, at some point you got to give it up, right? They never did give it up, did he? In the video, the snake never did. And I said to myself, that is not a woodpecker. That's a dodo. This guy is stupid. He doesn't know when to walk away from a fight. Right? That's the way half the world is. You know that? If you attack me, boy, I'm going to attack you back. And that was one of the things, now I'm not getting political here, but that was one of the things that bothered me early on, before Donald Trump ever became president, back when he was having his little rhubarb with, not Roseanne, but
Rosie O'Donnell.
Rosie O'Donnell. They were back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, attacking each other. And Donald Trump said this, and it really bothered me when he did. If you come at me, I'm coming back at you 10 times. And personally, I think he's gained some smarts since then. But that, never mind what you think of that. But I think that that's not the right thing to do. If somebody attacks you, what do? I remember years ago, and I had a habit of doing this. I had this guy named Tommy Meadows, and Tommy was having it a little bit rough, and so he asked if he could borrow some money. And I'm a sucker for guys like this. I don't know why. So I at that time, I was making $165 a week. I remember this. I was the associate pastor at the church. And what I was doing with my money was every week, 165, 165, 160. And I told him in the office, just keep the fourth one, because it's my gift to the church. And if you keep it, then you don't have to match Social Security and all that stuff, and it works out better. And so I was just over generous. And this guy asked me if he could borrow some money, $165. And I signed my paycheck over to him and gave it to him. Said, God bless you, man. And you know that that's never enough, right? Came back for a second one, and I gave it to him twice. So it wasn't 2 weeks later, he starts bad-mouthing me. I mean, what could you say bad about a person? But you know what happens. If you loan people money, it creates a thing. You know, it puts a thing in there, and you gotta learn how to handle that thing, right? And I've decided since then that it's not in my best interest to loan money. If I have it and I believe in it, I'm going to give it. And so that's safer for me because it keeps me from tarnishing my righteousness. You know, my crown gets a little goop on it, you know, now and then. And so you got to learn to process that. Somebody owes you money right now, you know what I say? Forget it, man. Just tell them God bless you. You're not getting it back anyway. I'm serious. You're not getting it back anyway. You're the victim, right? If you don't learn to forgive, that'll eat your lunch. Because you got this thing going on all the time, and it's your wheels are turning, and you got this cloud over your head, and boy, if I had the money that guy owes me, I could do this, blah, 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 you know. Jesus would not reciprocate in kind. Look at the last one. It says, if a man constrains you to go a mile, what are you going to do? So what this does is this takes up my time. So now I've not only, we're addressing personal injury, we're addressing financial injury, now we're addressing time. Because you only have so much, right? And what are you going to do? So this keeps you from doing something else, and et cetera, et cetera. So people do that. People ask more of you than you're willing to give. Here's what I've learned. I've learned that there is so much in the world going on around one thought. I'm tired. I'm tired. Right? So, well, you know, the reason I didn't clean up the floor in there because I'm tired. Right? Or the reason I didn't wash my dish because I'm tired. Well, the reason I didn't, you know, no, would you please go and give, no, I'm tired. Right? You'd be surprised how much of that thinking is in there that really inhibits you because you think you're tired. It's amazing what we could do if we just do it, man. Just do it. And, God will bless you with the rest some other time. Don't worry about it. What would the early church have been like if these people decided to revolt against Rome? There'd be no church. They'd all be dead. Oh, but we're going to have an insurrection and we're going to go after these guys. And that's what half this crowd wanted to happen anyway. And Jesus said, no. You can't reciprocate. If you start hating people, then you can't be my disciple. If you want to, here's the greatest commandment of all. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Who's my neighbor? Everybody that's not you. I can't love my neighbor. I don't even like those people. You don't have to like them to love them, tell you the truth. I occasionally get attacked in some way by somebody, and or some people or whatever. I get trash talk at church. Some of the people at church think I'm disloyal to the church because I don't go to church. I go to 3 classes. What they don't know is I'm dragging people into ministry. I'm doing what they're not doing, right? Disloyal would be if I didn't like the preaching, leave the church. That happens every week. But I'm not. I stay there 20 years. I'm pretty loyal. I'm loyal to a fault. I got this awful email this recently, a week ago. It just chewed me up one side and down the other and just spit me out. And I showed it to Eddie Mercer, and Eddie Mercer's wife read it, and she went, "What? What are you going to do?" And she asked Eddie, "What's he going to do?" And Eddie says, "Nothing." Eddie knows. You don't answer that stuff, right? You just keep doing. Never mind. I know you go there. I know how your heart is. It wants to know, right? It doesn't matter, it's just people talking. And I've learned this, that when you stick your head up, then you become shot at. Somebody's going to shoot at you. If you don't want to ever get shot at, just keep your head down. I remember years ago when we were in Michigan, before you were born, I was I don't know how to say, I was getting things figured out, and I was getting my life more in order, and I was getting more intense about the things of God, and it caught the attention of the pastor. So he'd be preaching, and we got 500 people sitting there. He'd be preaching, and he'd call my name. Isn't that right, Charles? Yeah, I know you. I'm going, what's he doing that for? He's going to get me in trouble, right? And he did, because people want to know why he kept calling my name out. Why? What do we think like that? You know how people are. They're just jealous and stupid, right? Mostly stupid. And I had people start taking pot shots at me. I was doing nothing, man. I'm just trying to serve God here. That's all. I'm just trying. You don't answer stuff like that. You just don't. You just move on. That's what I liked about, and see, that's one of the reasons it would be so hard to be the President of the United States. One half of the country hates you before you even get elected. They don't even know you, but they hate you. All I know is I hate them, right? And so the problem becomes if you start answering the haters. It's a waste of time, You're not going to change anybody's mind. All you're going to do is reciprocate. Don't do that. Just keep your mouth shut and move on. And look at the next one here. We must be charitable and generous, verse 42. And let me go back to that. And give to him that asks you, from him that will borrow. of you. Don't turn away. So if somebody needs something, what are you going to do? You're going to help them. You're going to give to them. And I've mentioned this before. That's what I find wrong with this. These preppers. I don't think you can be a Christian and be a prepper. Because how much preparation can you make? You can't feed the world, and what's going to happen is you save enough for your family, and somebody hungry is going to knock on your door. What are you going to do? You're going to give it to them if you're a Christian. And you might test your Christianity by not doing it, right? I mean, I got news for you. People like people that help people. That just works. You know, Metropolitan Ministry. Do you know what a big enterprise this thing is? Man, this is a big deal. And you know who likes them? The big corporations like them. Publix gives them zillions of dollars and food and all the restaurants and everybody. And why do they? Because they give their money away. They give and they help people. That's cool. And that's why Salvation Army is such a big enterprise, because they help people. And people know that they help people. Now some get better help than others because they're more receptive, right? That's the way that is, right? Some will, some won't, some what. You just keep going, you know. And if you do something good for somebody and it doesn't turn out good, what are you going to do? Quit doing it? No. You're going to go find someone else and you're going to try to help them. And you'll be a better person. People will like you. People like generous people. People like people that aren't angry all the time. People like people that have something positive to say. Instead of miserable and negative, I had to correct Gordon today. I said, how's it going? Any good news? And he said, well, I had this interview and that interview, and I'm doing this, I'm filling out that, and I'm trying not to get discouraged. I said, that last part, you just lost me. Just don't be discouraged. You don't have to be. You can choose to be. Do you know that? Nobody else can make you discouraged, just you. You might try to discourage me, but I'm a pretty positive guy. It's kind of hard to get me down. You know, that's my mindset. I try to practice that, and it works really good for me, and might work for you too. We must be ready to lend, ready to give. Bearing bitterness harms our relationship with God. I'm going to look in verse 23 and 24. Listen to this. And therefore I say, look at this in Matthew 5. What are you talking about? If you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has aught against you, you leave your gift before the altar and you go your way. First, be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. God says, I don't want your stinking gift if I don't have your heart. Now, see, I'm not like that. I'll take your money. I don't care if you feel good about it or not. You know, we got, by the way, you guys don't know this, but our biggest anchor here is car insurance. Because all these cars that we have, I mean, we've run up a pretty good tab on that. And the second one is electricity. And I'm not going to sit around fussing about that, man. I don't want everybody looking over everybody's shoulder and, hey, turn the light. I don't want all that, man. I'd rather raise the money and pay it than I'll get it out of there somehow. You know, so makes for a happier environment, doesn't it? Let's be happy, man. Don't worry, be happy. I think that singer had it right, you know. I also, and by the way, can you imagine this now? You try to give and God says, don't give. Get your heart right first. You got somebody that's got something against you, what do? Work it out. By the way, there's always somebody that's got something against you. Do you know that? If you walk this earth, somebody's always got something against you. And are they correct? I don't know. No, you just got to do the best you can. And try to live a decent life. And I have a little issue right now with my son-in-law. I keep bringing him up. He's doing injury to our family. And do I want to call him out? It doesn't do any good. Do I want to tell everybody what good would it do? You know, one thing it would do is burn a bridge, make it too hard to come back, right? You're better off not doing that. And I'll tell you something else. When husbands and wives fight, they're better off not to tell their parents. Because they make up, but the parents don't get over it. The parents remember the fight. The parents remember the struggles. And I actually call that taking up offenses. And there's a set of books down in there, the red one over there, and it's a Bill Gothard book, and it talks about relationship stuff. It's pretty good. You ought to thumb it sometime. He talks about taking up offenses. Here's the way that works. I offend Missy, and she tells Chris, and then me and Missy make up, and we're good, but Chris is still offended. Why? Because God gave grace to us. And you didn't get any because you none of your business. None of your business, right? That's taking up offenses. That's what's wrong with Facebook and calling people out and trashing people in public. Because the whole world gets offended. Everybody's offended about something. Have you noticed? Man alive, get over stuff. Quit airing your dirty laundry. You got an issue, work it out, solve it, man. Don't be trashing people. That's one of our favorite things. I saw this commercial a while ago, and this guy's, for 100 years, they've been rolling over this pothole in this one street. Bang, bang, knocking the tires off of everything. And finally somebody says, don't worry about it. The insurance is going to cover that, what just happened to your car. And this guy starts saying, yeah, that's it, pothole. And the guy says, are you trash talking a pothole? He said, yeah, kind of, so maybe I shouldn't do that. But I know this, listen to me now, that's one thing we love to do is trash talk people. Don't do that. It never gets you where you think you ought to be. And by the way, neither does criticism. Criticism never accomplishes what you think it should do. All it does is make people angry. Did you read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? How many of you guys read that?
Read what?
How to Win Friends and Influence People. This one. I tried to get him to read it when he was in 8th grade, and he wouldn't read it. And then after a while, he read it, and now he's read it a couple of times.
2 or 3.
It's a good book. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Everybody should read it. It just talks about how to get along with folks. And the one line I got out of it that most strongest was, criticism never works. Because nobody says, thank you, I'm going to change something. No, man, they don't do that. They reciprocate in kind. So what would Jesus do? Well, he would turn the other cheek. He did. He said, don't you know I could call 10 legions of angels and stop this whole thing? Don't you know that? That's power, isn't it? That's power. Do you remember the movie Schindler's List? Remember that movie? It should be required in high schools everywhere. Schindler's List. It looks at man's inhumanity to man, and it's the Nazis, and And there's a scene in it that I really, really like. The guy that was the master over the whole camp, he'd just take target practice on people just for fun. He'd just say, what's that guy doing? He's dragging his foot or something. You'd never make it, Chris. He'd pow and just fall down. And if anybody around you reacts, then he'll shoot them too. You just keep moving, man. Keep moving. And Schindler, who looked pretty smart, worked this guy. And he said one day, it's easier to judge people, but it doesn't take as much power as it does to forgive people. Only the person at the top can forgive. I went, wow, what a cool statement. So this guy started working on that. Anybody can I've got guys all over the place that shoot people, but only the guy at the top can forgive people. And so he started thinking that, yeah, I like that. It's real power. And so he started practicing it. And he'd get his fingers like this in the mirror. I forgive you. He's practicing. So then somebody did something that he would have killed him for otherwise, and he went, I forgive you. I went, wow, that is power that only you have in your life. Only you can forgive those people that have done you injury. Nobody else can do it for you, right? It's God's gift to you to say, I'm not going to reciprocate. I'm not looking for vengeance. I'm not going to pay people. And by the way, in marital relationships, one person gives the other one the silent treatment. Well, that's punishment, right? The silent treatment. Yeah, I'm not talking to you for a week, and you get well, what are you doing? Well, you're playing God. You're punishing somebody. And punishment isn't something, a right that we should claim. Who do we think we are punishing people? So, here's what Jesus would do. He'd forgive people. And he's setting them up in this portion of Scripture to do that. Because, man, all they want to do at this point is they want to kill Romans. Right? These people are in our face all day long. If I could get away with it, man, I would kill all these Romans. And he's setting them up to go, yeah, it doesn't work that way. Sooner or later, you're going to need them. Right? So let's pray out.